Hello and welcome to Rainbow History Class. My name is Rudy Jean Rigg.
And I am Hannah Elizabeth McElhinney in full, if you care. I've never come out with my last name, so there you go.
Can you just do a pronunciation for everyone?
McElhinney.
Yeah.
So you know Macklemore?
Yes.
The world's premier rapper.
I love him so much.
You just swapped the
I couldn't
more.
love him Macklemore. Wow. Oh my God.
Shit.
That was really good.
That was really good. Yeah, so it's basically just pronounced like that. But instead of more, you get Hinny, which doesn't have a rapper's ring to it. But
it's surprising.
That's my name.
It's surprising how often people look at your name and basically just poop their pants.
Honestly, well, actually, my name is a constant source of frustration and joy because, I think we've spoken about this before, but you know that my partner Hannah and I, we share the same first and middle name. So we're both Hannah Elizabeth, which causes it's obviously super cute, but even yesterday it was really annoying because we were both getting sandwiches, right? And we both were getting schnitzel sandwiches at the deli. And so I walked up and I ordered mine and I said a schnitzel sandwich and they say, what's your name? And I said Hannah. And then behind me, Hannah goes, oh, I'm going to have a schnitzel sandwich. And they say, what's your name? And they say Hannah. She says Hannah. So we had 2 tickets that said Hannah for a schnitzel.
Oh no.
What did they do when they got to making the schnitzels?
They just thought it was a double.
They were like, oh, a double one. And so they threw it out.
Really?
So we only got 1 schnitzel.
That is, it's so bizarre to me because I feel like I really don't make a lot of, my brain doesn't really work in I'm going to presume things sort of fashion. I always like to feel as though I know the objective truth of the situation before I assume something. And so it's really interesting to me that would occur.
It shows just how often people assume all sorts of things. I also think it's quite nice because, most of these assumptions come from a place of trying to help someone out. Oh, I'm sure you didn't mean to print 2 sandwich tickets. Or for example, there's 2 people with the same address and the same name. Let's merge their entirely separate accounts into one.
I can't believe they had the authorization to do that.
That's the kind of stuff that banks do get away with. But, I think that's the thing. It's it always comes from somebody trying to make our experience better and just ultimately makes it more annoying.
Yes.
We did get we did get the sandwich in the end and he felt really bad about it. And then I got a coupon for a free one next time. Yeah, because I just explained. I was like, oh, I'm sure it was a double up because we both have the same name. And I also would have ordered them on the 1 ticket. It's just that I wasn't sure that Hannah was going to get the same sandwich as me and she hadn't made up her mind yet and I was really hungry. So anyway, we should crack into the episode.
I guess so. I was really enjoying listening to your relationship debacles at the deli. That was really setting a scene there.
I know. I do think that's why I always say the frontier of inclusion is in administration.
And you've always really truly said that, haven't you?
I have. Admin is the final frontier.
Yeah. But what are we talking about today?
Okay, so I'm going to preface this with the reason that I chose this topic to talk to you about today. And that is because I went to the shops recently and tried to buy a white t-shirt.
So you're using the podcast to resolve a personal gripe?
Less of a personal gripe and more of I just want your sartorial steer here.
Okay, great.
I've never had a white t-shirt. All of my clothes are almost exclusively patchworked. I don't have any what you would call basics or staples. And there was a time where I was like, you know what? It's coming into summer. I don't have any t-shirts or anything that are not kind of oddly and ironically sloganed or, patchworked. So I thought I'm going to get some t-shirts, plain t-shirts. So I went to the, Uniqlo, the home of basics, and selected a white t-shirt, which I thought I could, really wear with anything because that's the point of them. And I went home and I put it on.
Oh, no.
And I took it straight back off again and I didn't take it back. It was more that it scared me.
What was wrong with it?
Threw it sort of down the floor of my wardrobe. Well, it was wrong. I put it on and all of a sudden I looked like a mum on the school run.
No.
With a high bun. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to say up front, mum's on the school run. You look great in whatever you wear.
Doing the Lord's work.
You are. But for me, I just felt strange. Like I had decided at my stage in life to, read one of those gift books on how to dress like a French woman.
Oh, yeah. How to get the Parisian style in 10 easy steps. Yeah.
Exactly that. And all of a sudden I felt like all of my, personality stripped away. And what got me feeling really upset about this is because what I was really hoping for was to tap into some androgyny, right? That like there are white t-shirt lesbians. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say white t-shirt lesbian?
Yeah, I do. It's a very simple yet well executed style that these white t-shirt lesbians have.
Yeah, we're talking about, this sort of androgyny or soft androgyny that comes with throwing on a white t-shirt and a pair of baggy jeans and all of a sudden it just, makes you look
I mean, I can help you there.
queer
I can
and cool.
style that for you.
I'm telling you though, when I put it on.
Nah, I'm telling you, I think I saw you wear this t-shirt once and I'm telling you, you hadn't styled it in the right way.
You can help me style this white t-shirt. I think that the cut was wrong.
I think the fabric was wrong, actually.
You think the fabric was wrong?
I don't think it was the cut. I think it was the fabric. Because we're talking about the Uniqlo Airism t-shirt, right?
We are talking about the Uniqlo Airism t-shirt, but that is because it came from a listicle on best white t-shirts.
But was that listicle made for women who wanted to look like feminine?
I think it was made for women who have to balance the school run with their busy lives.
Okay.
Not lesbians who are trying to kind of like tackle androgyny in a modern queer context.
Well, stylistically, just a really quick breakdown of how you can achieve this is you have to look at your measurements and then compare that to the weight of the fabric and the fabric blend to then basically come up with a ratio of how it's going to fall off your body. And then also take your height into consideration with the length of the t-shirt and then combine that with where your pants are sitting and also how wide the leg of the
so
pant
I'm
is.
actually a busy woman trying to deal with school drop-off and have working buns. I don't have time for this math, Rudy. But I'm telling you, instead of like going to you for styling advice, I have actually done a lot of research into the history of the white t-shirt as a queer staple. And it's super interesting, but I think like, and I want to flag up front that, I want to take us through this history and then look at kind of how it became this kind of queer symbol, both for gay men, but also for gay women. And I do think that there is something about it that isn't accessible. I think the world of fashion has like cemented the white t-shirt lesbian as kind of a palatable queer woman, and it does become associated with a certain body type. So I want to caveat that up front when I talk about white t-shirt lesbians. I'm talking about people with, that possess kind of a certain body type that, puts them in kind of puts them in amongst fashion's elite. They're very kind of slender and they have small busts, white often.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yes. But I will say anyone can wear a white t-shirt in that style. They just have to know how to do it.
Okay.
Just saying.
I just feel like you should work on the delivery of your styling advice to be less kind of Leonardo da Vinci inspired math.
Oh, I can't. Like, that's the thing. It's
like, there's
all
a
about
reason
math.
you don't work at Cosmopolitan if that's how you're expressing it. But I believe that you can create a handy how-to guide.
I think I could.
For neither butch nor femme lesbians trying to become a white t-shirt lesbian. I would like that.
Okay, well, maybe I will, Hannah. Maybe I will.
All right. And you can practice on me and then we'll stick it on the channel. You can see if I can carry off a white t-shirt.
All right.
But now I'm interested in interesting you with some information.
Stitch me up.
Now, I want to talk to you about like white t-shirts in general, because have you always worn them?
Yes. Well, actually, I didn't really wear them before I had top surgery.
Right. This is what I'm saying. And why didn't you wear them?
Because, well, number one, I was young and I didn't have access to being able to, really buy the one that I kind of wanted.
That fit
me.
Leonardo da Vinci's
Exactly. No, but also it
Math.
took me a long time to figure out the formula to being able to achieve it no matter your body type, because I did end up wearing them before I had top surgery when I had access to like being able to try and figure out this formula that I now utilize. But I never really wore them back in the day because they were cheap, they were see-through, so of course, you know, you could see any undergarments that you were wearing. They, you know, I was still being sort of, I guess, influenced by what everyone was telling me I should look like, which was someone that wore fitted clothing rather than something that fell off the body in a particular way. But also I was an emo, so I wasn't really wearing white.
That. Yeah, you could have just said that. Yeah. Also, you're an emo.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. But I like, you know, I do think that the size chest that you have can influence how you feel in a white t-shirt.
Absolutely. It can. I mean, look, it can influence how you feel in everything. It's because like the fashion industry just really sucks at making garments that are suitable for all different types of body shapes.
It's true, especially, you know, basics or androgynous garments that can be worn if you have like a body with a lot of shape to it.
But also like, I feel like that also like, I mean, this is going in a different direction, but like the concept of androgyny, why are we reducing it to whether someone has a large bust or not? Like that, you know, it's just, I mean, it's obviously like a
yeah, and all masculine clothes are, you know, baggy. And
yeah,
so if somebody, yeah.
I mean, androgyny is way more than a chest. Like that's just ridiculous. Obviously, like, yeah, when we speak about this.
Maybe you could put that in your handy guide because I feel like I need a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Because what I was really looking for is a way to tap into androgyny with, you know, not a flat chest.
But that being said, if you are someone that is like looking at androgyny and going, oh, if only I had a flat chest, I would feel androgynous. Maybe that's actually more of a point of potential dysphoria rather than anything else. Which,
maybe,
you know, I'm not meaning to like lead anyone down a particular road, but I do think that's interesting when if you are someone who is searching for androgyny, but feel like your one roadblock is your chest, well then, I don't know, maybe think about that one a little bit.
All right, that's a different episode.
Yeah. Sorry to like derail you.
That's okay because I've always like been interested. I just thought, you know, when I was in year 9, I thought I'd share with you that I had a queer awakening then, one of many, you know, but I was in a band and my band was in Battle of the Bands and we did a cover of the Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction.
I thought you were going to say you did a cover of Hey There Delilah.
No, I specifically left the Plain White Tees out of this episode. No, the singer of my band I was in love with, she was the best singer in the school and she had agreed to be the singer of my band.
Wow.
And what was really great was that she really learnt the lyrics and she really put her heart and soul into the music that we did and the covers that I chose.
I mean, that's the job of the singer, and I would be.
I know, but I just was so like happy that somebody was like coming to a band that I was really passionate about with a sense of professionalism.
I love that. Okay.
Anyway, there was obviously a big discussion in this song about whether or not she flipped the pronouns because it's obviously about a woman, and I would obviously pray at night that she did not flip the pronouns. There's this part in the song that says, when I'm watching my TV and a man comes on and tells me how white my shirts can be, but he can't be a man because he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes as me. That coming from this girl who I had beyond a crush on was in some ways a queer awakening. And it was somehow fused to this idea of like androgyny and wearing white t-shirts. So that is what I wanted to kind of set the scene with and why I'm interested in bringing this story to you today. So like white t-shirts, I'm going to call them t-shirt-like smocks, have always been worn as undergarments, usually in wool or silk. And they were worn, you know, from medieval times by people of high social standings. By people. I'm just seeing myself out.
It's funny.
We are not going to get through the entire history if you think that that is funny.
Peeper gates. Keep going. Oh, peepers.
Okay. They really were worn by Peeper of...
You did it
Got
again.
you, I did it. That one...
Wait, was that
one was for
purpose?
you. Yeah, that one was on
Okay,
purpose.
good.
Okay. By the ruling classes, because they had to wear these like ornate, delicate, gowns or robes with gold thread. And so really these undergarments protected these outer garments from bodily fluids.
Ew.
I know, isn't it disgusting?
Like, wow, we really can't work out the technology to make breathable outerwear. But boy, if we slap on another layer, that'll do
stop the
trick.
sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's one thing I know, it's more layers means less sweat. But basically, yeah, that is what they did. And this was a time when Christianity was very important. And so the idea of bodily fluids or any kind of like anything that came from the naked body was obviously frowned upon. So these were kind of these smocks that started to be worn. Now, the next step in our timeline, like so many things we speak about, ties into colonization. So colonization was a real driving force of the Industrial Revolution, and through the exploitation of the labor of enslaved people, the cotton industry really boomed, and it was able to distribute its cotton products all around the world. And it's kind of interesting because, as we'll talk later, the T-shirt is like an intrinsically political garment, both in how it's worn, what it might say culturally, but also from a manufacturing point of view. Like, this is a staple of clothing that is tied to the manufacturing ethics of the time. So it started during slavery, and right now fair labor practices are still tied up in kind of cotton and T-shirts. So what this did, though, when we look at the distribution of cotton around the world during this Industrial Revolution, is it rose hygiene standards, because now cotton underwear was far more accessible, and this could be laundered, and you could have kind of multiples.
Wow, isn't that nice?
Well, it's nice except then you think about what they had before, and it was just this like absorbent,
like, it's just basically a nappy
for the entire torso.
Well, yeah. I mean, did they wear underwear before, cotton underwear?
Well, I think we're talking about undergarments.
Yeah, I'm talking about underwear,
Yes,
Hannah.
Yeah. In terms of like
pants.
No, certainly not at the
They were freeballing the whole time.
Yeah, certainly not at like working class or peasants or things like that.
God. Oh, what an image. Sorry.
Yeah, so hygiene really did rise a little during the Industrial Revolution. But again, that is kind of what gets us to the T-shirt and how it became cotton. Around the turn of the 20th century, so the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, the main underwear companies, and I was surprised to know that a couple of these still exist. So Hanes,
Yeah.
Fruit of the Loom.
What?
Fruit of the Loom.
Okay.
Which I believe still, actually, let me just check. Fruit of the Loom. Yeah, it's still there.
Is it? It sounds like a maternity brand for some reason.
I still hear Fruit of the Loins, but Fruit of the Loom, yes, is still making undies.
Okay.
And then a brand called Cooper's, which became Jockey.
What?
Jockey underwear.
Chalky?
Jockey.
Oh, I thought you said chalky, like chocolate.
Small man on a horse.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what these underwear brands did was they cut in half the main undergarment that had been worn throughout history, which was called a union suit.
Just shut up. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
What are you unionizing in the suit? Your body? Like your limbs? Your
it was a union suit.
Your 4 quadrants?
So it's like a onesie, which one time I slept in something like a union suit, like a full-on onesie to sleep
popular.
in.
Do you remember when they were popular?
I do remember, and this was when I slept in one, and I had the best sleep of my life. I've only ever had one good sleep in my life, and it was this night. It wasn't even my onesie.
Was it a rabbit or a...
I think I had little toasts on it.
Oh, I had a cat one.
Yeah, it was Amazing.
Very comfortable. You feel quite. I know why babies like being in those bad
You
boys
feel like
now.
secure and tucked in and like you're not going to lose your extremities.
Yeah.
Which was nice. I really don't know why they needed to cut it in half. But when they did, that created long johns out of the bottoms and a t-shirt, long sleeve or short sleeve out of the top. And it was these like bisected union suits.
Bisexual union.
Yeah, the bisexual unionists. So it was these t-shirts that were issued to the US Navy.
Of course they were.
I know. It's just like, it's a drinking game every time the Navy comes up in queer history.
Yeah.
These were issued to the US Navy during the Spanish-American War in around 1898, okay? So just before the 20th century. But pretty soon after, they became like naval uniform for all US Marine Corps, all right?
Yes.
And as this was happening, these underwear conglomerates, these big underwear, started marketing these T-shirts to the general public. All right?
Why?
Well, capitalism.
Yeah.
And then also because they were making, they were manufacturing these. And so they were giving it to, sailors in the army. So, it made sense to like widen that.
Yeah.
Also at the time, if you look at the ads, they're very, very funny because they're so homoerotic. So really what the brands were trying to do is play up these T-shirts as underwear, play up their comfort and construction, a garment that kind of moves with you while you're doing other masculine things.
Yeah.
Sort of fitting like a glove,
Yeah, gotta get those wooden, what is it called? Gotta chop that wood.
Exactly. And, sailors in the army, if you're in the army, then there was kind of a body type associated with that profession. You were very, very muscular and virile, really. Yeah, so they're all, it's so homoerotic. But, a lot of these ads had these sailors wearing these kind of muscle tees.
Okay.
Yeah, and that made
with their little hats.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
What a sight.
And that's why they became kind of this symbol of masculinity, right? And it was homoerotic because remember that they were still underwear. So this was an undergarment
So that's so bizarre.
Yeah, if you
You're
saw
wearing a
someone's
whole-
T-shirt, that was like that's like a step closer to seeing them naked.
Like, you're wearing a whole T-shirt under another shirt. Like, I'm a big fan of layering when I put together an outfit. But having to go, oh, yeah, well, I can't go out without my underwear T-shirt. Yeah, just let me put that one on.
Go back to the, Renaissance times. It's hygienic because here's your sweat rag to go between your business shirt.
I guess that is true. It's so funny. Sorry, I'm derailing again, but I just find it really interesting how at some point in time, it was probably popular to be able to see your singlet or your T-shirt line underneath a business shirt.
I think it definitely was in the 50s and 60s, because that was considered like appropriate dressing, you know, like not wearing that would be like not wearing underwear under your pants.
I remember even as a kid, like at the beginning, well, in the 2000s, like as a small kid, like I think I had to fight my mum to allow me not to wear a singlet because she still was like, well, you got to wear it, like, And
I remember did you have Spencers, I think they were called?
Yes.
Like a long sleeve kind of, yeah.
I hated it. Maybe it was a sensory thing for me, but I hated it. And so I think I won that battle with my mum. But like, yeah, it was still in the 2000s, like pretty, I think, standard.
I think I was really forced to wear a singlet until I needed to wear a bra. Like that was, I think in the 90s, everyone wore singlets and it's less so now. But I think that's the thing. Like if you saw someone's T-shirt, you were seeing their underwear. So now we can see that when we see like all of these very muscular, rippled sailors with their T-shirts on, that's an underwear catalog. So we can kind of start seeing how queer men would be attracted to this garment. But ultimately it became a symbol of like strength and masculinity. So we weren't calling them T-shirts at this point. That's why I'm going to continue with bisected union suit.
Okay.
But in the 1920s, like we had the word T-shirt, it appeared in dictionaries. And during this time, these like Navy sailors would begin to be seen without their overshirts on. Because, you know, if they're on deck and it was very hot, then it made sense for them to just kind of whip off whatever was happening on top and just wear their t-shirts. And so that's when you sort of really started to see in photography, you know, through World War II and, you know, World War I, you started to really see these men with just t-shirts on. So again, if we look at kind of like how in particular the US views the military, the height of masculinity would be somebody wearing this t-shirt.
Wow. I mean, look, simple pleasures in life really, isn't it?
It's true. It's true. I mean, like I'm already feeling hot thinking of having a t-shirt on under this and then having to kind of like pull on some ropes.
Yeah, no way. I mean, just like, yeah, underarms. I don't care if it's made out of cotton. Like, I just don't want that.
There's just a lot happening. And then, you know, the idea of kind of just wearing the t-shirt, that started to be echoed in other manly professions, like, you know, miners that were working in very hot environments would only wear t-shirts.
Do you think it gets hot in mines or cold?
Well, I think that it gets hot.
It would get cold, wouldn't it?
We'll have to fact check this after, but I do believe that, like, you know, if they're mining at some point, they're burning coal.
I'm going to Google this. Hang on.
Okay, you can Google this and
it hot in
and
a
deal with
mine.
this in the edit, Rudy.
I'm not editing this. It has to be resolved right now. Just so everyone knows, pro-choice safety gear is telling me temperature levels in underground mines can be extreme. It ranges from extremity numbing cold to such heat that dehydration can be caused in a matter of minutes. Mines in Mongolia have to battle temperatures of minus 40 degrees Celsius, whereas mines in Western Australia often reach into the 50s. So there you go, everyone.
There you go.
Depends where you are.
Depends where you are, but I don't think it was the Mongolian miners that were setting the t-shirt trend, at least in this canon, in this timeline.
Yeah.
They probably have a range of other masculine garments to cope with their extreme cold mines. So we'll go with hot.
Sure.
Just because we're closer to Western Australia. So
I'm not sorry.
So there are all these like men doing these masculine jobs where heat was a thing, and so they really needed like a lightweight garment, and that is how t-shirts moved out of the underwear drawer and became a garment in their own right. But only for certain workers. You know, this was really not like you were not seeing anyone kind of going to work with a t-shirt on. This is very much manual, hard labor jobs. In around the 1930s, right, this is when paid leave started.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I really thought it was more recent, but the idea of paid leave and kind of, you know, here, the UK, the US, what that meant was the idea of leisure time that working class people had never really had before. So this meant that, you know, for a small period of time, we could have recreation. And so recreation kind of grew to become kind of sport culture. People would be going to play things like tennis or, you know, polo or whatever it is. Yeah. And so the advent of recreation meant that sports style came with it.
Wow.
And so again,
athleisure,
exactly. And when you're doing sport, you do not want to be wearing a t-shirt with something else over the top. So taking from the miners and the sailors, a t-shirt became a symbol of style. Now, remembering that at this point in time, it wasn't the same climate for women's sport that it is now. So we were still thinking of masculinity and athleticism. The t-shirt really started to symbolize that. The t-shirt was worn by all sorts of people and became soon very, very associated with athleisure or sports style. So again, if we look at how as queer people we engage with the t-shirt, we have a very strong through line of homoeroticism. So again, we're seeing a lot of muscular, athletic figures, you know, wearing something that is essentially or has always been in living memory underwear.
But that's so interesting.
It's kind of like a jock strap.
Well, that's the thing. Or kind of, yeah. I suppose. I wonder if a time traveler went to a sport game and saw someone wearing a t-shirt, do you think they'd like faint? Get their little hanky out and go, oh dear me, and just faint.
It's possible.
Wow.
It's possible.
And that's when we would know that time travelers existed.
That's true. I mean, like, I imagine if someone came forward in time and witnessed somebody wearing a t-shirt, they would be like, sorry, that is the absorbent smock supposed to be under under your good occasion gown.
That is my union. What was it called?
Hey, somebody cut my union suit in half. Again, then we bring in the Navy, early 20th century, port cities, the emergence of gay culture. We do have a lot of Navy men wearing their t-shirts, having sex with other men in this period of time. So it really did become a queer symbol. We need to move to the 1950s, all right, on our journey of the white tee. Because at this point, like you said, it was something that was seen under a shirt or a business shirt. If you were going to the office in the 60s, you know, you would often wear this. If you watch like Mad Men, he's often wearing one.
Yeah. Yeah, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was a real kind of part of men's style at the time. Wearing just a t-shirt with nothing.
Do you think they were scared of having their nipples seen? Sorry, I just thought about that. Do you think they were like, I can't go into the office and broker a stock deal if people can see my nips?
I think definitely.
Sorry, that just occurred to me. I'm like, oh my God.
It feels like it would be protective too. Like, you know, like they wouldn't chafe.
Chafe, yeah. Because I can't imagine those polyester blends are too kind on the nipples.
Certainly not in the 70s.
No,
in the
no.
60s.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's probably that to it. But at this period of time, if well-to-do men were going to work with their jackets on and their shirt and their tight white tee underneath, wearing just the tight white tee was an act of rebellion, you know, for a lot of young boys, exactly, against their fathers. So in the 1950s, the white t-shirt became a symbol of rebellion. And this is because for like most of, you know, history before that, young men didn't have fashion or self-expression through style. They wore what was appropriate based on, you know, the industry they were in, the social standing of their family, you know, really what their father wore. It was really kind of dictated for them. So in the 1950s, this is where we start to get youth culture. And a lot of young men, you know, in the 50s started to wear their plain white t-shirts as a bit of a blank canvas because, you know, if everything else that's available to them was a marker of their social class or their wealth or their industry, then a plain white t-shirt was really just about them. It was a blank canvas for them to kind of express themselves through. So then in 1951, of course, we have Marlon Brando. Have you seen A Streetcar Named Desire?
No, I haven't. I know. I don't know. I just get put off because everyone says you should watch it and I think, well, now I won't.
Well, I think if you didn't study it in school, it might be you'd need a reason to revisit it now. But I really like it. But Marlon Brando was like the ultimate bad boy.
Yes, that much I do understand.
Yeah. And so he wore one in A Streetcar Named Desire. And then in 1955, your mate, James Dean, again made the white t-shirt the ultimate bad boy uniform in Rebel Without a Cause. Both Marlon Brando and James Dean also had experiences with men, which not a lot of people talk about, but Marlon Brando was quite open about it.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
he in interviews said that, you know, homosexuality was, you know, cool and he'd absolutely taken part in it, while James Dean is said to have had like male lovers, but it's kind of a bit more contentious. Some people are saying that, you know, he sort of did these things to further his career or because it, you know, was convenient for him for other reasons. Whereas Marlon Brando was quite open about enjoying it.
That's very interesting.
So we don't know, but we do know that these symbols of rebellion and masculinity in the 50s were men who are said to have had sex with men and then also just be that kind of rebellious kind of bad boy image. And this is when we start seeing the appeal in the white t-shirt for queer women.
Okay.
Because so far it's always been about masculinity and homoeroticism among men. But as soon as we start to get the Marlon Brandos and the James Dean, that's when we start to see women who want to flex into their masculinity and sex appeal start adopting the same clothing.
Yeah, because I think before the white t-shirt, women did wear suits and whatnot. Like they were wearing like, you know, menswear.
We had the 1920s where, yeah, I guess women were wearing pants.
Yeah.
And then there was World War II where women needed to take up jobs in factories or a lot of other kind of traditionally male labor forms, I guess. And so, yeah, they did wear things like T-shirts, and I think they were available. So I think for a lot of like queer women from the 50s onwards, this kind of sex symbols of like James Dean and Marlon Brando were appealing to them because they were masculine, but they weren't kind of grubby. Like it was almost camp, their masculinity.
Yeah.
It was more Johnny Bravo than, I don't know, Woodchucker.
Chuck Norris.
Than Chuck Norris. No, he's camp too.
He is
I
camp.
don't know. So like basically this was attractive to women, and like drag king culture, you know, came from there. So we're in the 50s and all of a sudden we've got gay men loving the white t-shirt and we've got gay women also loving the white t-shirt as sex symbols, gay style symbols. Moving out of the 50s, though, we're into the 60s, which of course is the countercultural movement, right? This was everything from, you know, the environmental movement, the women's movement, the gay liberation movement, the civil rights movement. And so activists in this time were kind of a member of all sorts of movements. It was kind of whatever issue was hot among the activist community. You know, there was a lot of kind of cross-movement solidarity, which I guess there kind of is now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always been that way. I mean, I think activism's always been quite intersexual.
Intersexual, okay.
Sure, intersectional. Yeah, I think like I would say so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the t-shirts, this is where they came into it again, because obviously we did have gay liberation. So, you know, they were being worn in that context. But throughout feminism as well, these white t-shirts would be printed in kind of community print labs, that type of thing, with different slogans. And that's when you start to see some of those like really great 1970s political slogan t-shirts.
Yeah, I mean, a white t-shirt's a great canvas.
It is. And so that's, again, what cemented it in this kind of countercultural territory. In the 90s, this had a resurgence. We had the like resurgence of the slogan tee with which designer?
Oh, Vivienne Westwood.
Yes, with Vivienne Westwood. And so she was making slogan tees, you know, high fashion. Because they never had been really previously. They were political. And Vivienne Westwood was a designer who mixed the political with the high fashion. So now that they were in the mainstream, we had things like, you know, designers like Karl Lagerfeld kind of capitalized on the t-shirt for its effortlessly cool credentials. So this was kind of like the basic. And then this is kind of where you get that kind of basic side to the white t-shirt, because it was loved, you know, by brands like Chanel and things like that as a way of being very, very pared back and simple.
And like, I feel like brands are like high fashion brands, so, like designers rather, like some of them do try and like almost absorb trends to make them classic, and almost kind of like smokescreen this, like, it's always been classic. What are you talking about? But also try and be like, we did it first. And it's very weird.
I think you're right. Like the idea of classic being best in fashion
is
so weird and just so widely accepted for no good reason.
Yeah.
Like what makes something classic and inherently better than something that's new or, you know, ephemeral?
Well, it's like classic. Like, what do you mean by classic? Classic is it's old. Classic, it's transcended trends. Classic, it's like
goes with everything.
Yeah, like what does classic even mean? Like classic, in my opinion, for a long time meant boring. You know?
I mean, arguably.
It is kind of.
It is. That's the point. It's a blank canvas, I guess.
Yeah.
So it says nothing.
But then it says a lot. Because I mean, like, for example, red lipstick's classic, isn't it? But that says a lot.
But I think that's what we're saying about the white t-shirt is among certain people it does say a lot. Like, I think for a certain subset now, it says jeans and a nice top.
Really? You think a white t-shirt? I thought it was like jeans and a nice top meant like a cami t-shirt.
Yeah, I think a white t-shirt also is kind of like, you know, jeans and a white t-shirt, like an expensive white t-shirt. I mean, like if you were to have an Acne white tee or a Chanel white tee, jeans
Yes.
and a white tee in a lot of kind of mainstream society would get you really anywhere. You could wear it to work, you could wear it to dinner, you could wear it to a party,
School run.
like you could literally wear this. So it is versatile. But when we talk about how it kind of became really revered again among queer women in particular was in the 90s. We also were in our lesbian chic craze.
White t-shirt and a blazer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the hallmarks of this lesbian chic craze, which was when, you know, all of the fashion magazines were starting to say, you know, lesbians are actually fashionable because their style had been derided for the past like 40 years. So women in androgynous dress were suddenly everywhere on the pages of fashion magazines. And I think that the best example of this would have been Madonna.
Yeah.
And so Madonna was like a real pinup of lesbian chic, obviously not shy about kissing women and also, you know, going through that period of wearing very, very masculine androgynous clothing. So Madonna in her white t-shirt really, I think, epitomizes what a white t-shirt lesbian can be. And this kind of look did continue through the 2000s. I think that really starts to establish the style of being a lesbian, you know, from a flagging perspective. So knowing that somebody's queer based on what they're wearing and what their hair looks like and that kind of thing. But also like a way to be fashionable as a lesbian. And so we've, you know, seen queer women like Ruby Rose throughout the, you know, 2000s, then the 2010s, Cara Delevingne.
Yes, I was going to say.
And then now, of course,
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart.
The photo set that she did with I don't know the magazine, but yeah, she's in a white singlet, but I think she has to wear like a white t-shirt.
There's a very like it's similar overlap really, and so she always wore these white t-shirts, both as a hallmark of androgyny and effortlessly cool. Because remembering Kristen Stewart was brought on by Chanel.
Yes, yeah, she's an ambassador for
So she really blends the two worlds together.
Yeah.
And that's where we get, you know, that's where we kind of get to. And I look at a lot of these people and I think, oh my God, I'd love to be like Kristen Stewart and just like look like I've fallen out of bed and thrown on a white t-shirt effortlessly. But, you know, it didn't work for me. And I think there's something interesting that I want to unpack with you as final thoughts. But one, androgyny.
Yes.
And what that actually means or looks like and what it looks like in the eyes of, I guess, society or people that aren't androgynous. And two, why does being cool have to be effortless? What is so bad about trying?
Well, okay. So I feel like with the cool thing, for me, I feel like I recently normally I don't like fashion TikTok. I feel like the takes on there are really like subpar. But I saw this video recently where someone was saying they were talking about the difference between being fashionable and being stylish and the difference between the two.
Right.
And I do feel like fashionable looks like you put in effort and stylish looks effortless, because I feel like, I don't know, there is a difference there, but to talk about coolness and why coolness needs to look effortless, but I feel like when we talk about coolness, there's an element of stylishness. To look cool is not to be fashionable, it is to be stylish. And so that's why I mentioned the TikTok, but I don't think that it needs to look effortless. I think the reason that we think cool people are effortless is because what they are doing is working. It's working for like a myriad of reasons, whether it's because there's biases that people are asserting to that person. Are they white and thin, for example, is one way that someone looks quote unquote effortless. But if we take that away and we just think about it in terms of fashion, I think that the reason people look effortless is because they're doing it right. And what that is kind of subjective, I think, because like, for example, like, 2007 effortlessly cool people may not look cool now. For example, like Zooey Deschanel, the outfits that she was wearing in 2007, very indie sleeves, they look effortless, but now are they cool? Maybe not in the eyes of like fashion and stylishness now. So I
It's
don't
true.
know.
It's true. And I do wonder, because I think what it comes down to is this idea of like androgyny in a palatable sense, androgyny in a fashionable sense is so tied to, to being thin, white, able-bodied, really. Like I
Yeah.
think so many times if you take this same outfit and put it on kind of like two different bodies,
Yes.
one's in Vogue magazine and then the other is kind of like you should dress up because you're going out.
Yes.
I think there is a difference in the commentary. And I think what's interesting is what's projected onto the white t-shirt. When we look at, say, somebody like Kristen Stewart wearing one, all of a sudden it's androgyny, it's effortlessly cool. When Ruby Rose wears one, it's lesbian chic. Versus when, people that don't have that privilege would wear one. Often it's a t-shirt, it's jeans and a t-shirt, it's casual,
Yeah.
it's almost goes back to being underwear.
But I think as well, like, I think for me, and this is being generalist and reductive, but I think the point still stands, is like when we look at the same garment being worn by two people who look different is, like as we were saying, someone who's white, able-bodied and thin, number one, like we just as a culture assume that that's like superior to any other form of human being. And number two, I think the biggest player in this is that fashion is made for someone who looks like that. Fashion is not accessible or made for people who don't look like that. And therefore, their effort level has to be inherently higher to achieve the same look. And that's where you run into issues of accessibility in terms of accessing garments that fall on the body the same way, are made from similar materials, of a certain quality, in terms of like price point, and the knowledge and education to be able to style a body like that, which is just isn't afforded to like people because like the fashion industry is just like so shitty.
That's exactly what I've come to after this. The idea of like effortlessness actually is just,
it's a privilege.
It's privilege. It's access. It's effortless, as heralded, because it's a symptom of privilege. But for a lot of people, there's a lot of effort involved to participate in culture. So I want to leave you with that. And hopefully I'll be wearing a white t-shirt sometime soon. Or maybe not, because ultimately that's not my style.
I mean, maybe, but you haven't had the opportunity to really scope it out. You haven't had that. You haven't had that opportunity, which I feel like, I think you just got to explore it further, which, I was saying earlier. But hey, thank you so much for taking me through that. I really didn't know a lot of the history. So I appreciate you walking me through, over 100 years of white t-shirt, bisexual union suit history. But yeah, if you enjoyed that, listening into Hannah's story, you can actually check us out on Patreon. We're over on Patreon. And of course you can find us on Instagram and TikTok.
So come along if you fancy it.
Yeah.
And until then, probably leave you with the message that we always like to leave you with. And that is, not everything is gay, but there is gay in everything, including that white t-shirt stuffed down the bottom of your wardrobe.